Kevin, welcome back to Investor News. Since the last time we spoke, you've advanced a royalty transaction with Enduro Metals, and you're moving into your first ever drill program with Trek South. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you do, Tracy. And in fact, we are getting rather excited now. I started to call some of our shareholders, many of them last week, and a lot of people that I came in contact with in recent months, just reminding them that time is short now for the really exciting work of drilling this target, Trek South, for the first time ever. So if you follow this kind of exploration story, this is when, the tire meets the asphalt. This is the key time of the year and the most exciting time of the year. So we're ready to go.
So this is your maiden drill program. For everybody out there that may not understand the significance of that, can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, it's the first ever. I kind of like to use the term first ever because a lot of people think we might be rehashing a play from the past. We're not. What we are is we've developed the Trek South prospect as a new to science target just over the last several years. It emerged from glacial ice melt, so there's that aspect to the story, which is rather interesting. And nature has basically given us a huge target that looks very juicy as a potential porphyry copper gold discovery in the making. So that's what we hope to achieve. Um, we will have a substantial drill program. We're literally hoping to hit, and I'm kind of expecting to hit in the first few drill holes, maybe in fact, even in the first drill hole. It's that good.
And of course, it's in the Golden Triangle. And we just want to reinforce that for those of you out there going, hey, this is also you've got copper and gold porphyry that you are targeting, correct?
It is, yeah. And there's some silver in it as well, but the kind of the kind of target porphyry doesn't mean much to a lot of investors, I suppose, but suffice to say it's this kind of deposit, if we find it's not a deposit yet, but porphyry copper gold deposits, when they become mines, tend to be very long life. Um, Cost a lot of money to build, but they last for generations typically. So that's why the major mining companies like them. And our focus is really finding these beasts and potentially, well, hopefully find one this summer. We will advance it, drill it, quantify it, and potentially sell it. That's our game plan. Sell it to a major, just like we did at GT Gold a few years ago with the Saddle North discovery in the same general neck of the woods.
So you basically have a thesis that you're targeting, and you're right next to two large majors anyways, your location. Would you like to, comment further on that?
Here, we are next to, and in fact, our Trek property. So Trek South is on our Trek property. It kind of injects itself as a property into a huge package of ground that's held by what shortly will be Anglo Tech and Newmont. So they're in a 50-50 joint venture on a really lovely series of deposits that they're advancing toward mining. It will be mined. It's called Galore Creek, and we're immediately adjacent to it. I don't mean 50 kilometers away, but the road to Galore Creek comes right up to our property boundary. It's not quite finished yet, most of it, but substantially complete, large sections. And we're about 6 kilometers as the crow flies from Galore Creek, which is really one of the, if not the richest remaining porphyry, copper, gold, silver deposits, because there are several there in British Columbia. So we believe we have another candidate. We think it'll be similar from what we know already to the Galore Creek deposits in terms of style. So if we succeed, we're strategically very well positioned right next door to the majors.
Now, I read that your initial phase is approximately 4,600 meters of drill holes. Will that be enough to get the information and data you need to take this to the next step?
Well, what we need is one or two drill holes that give us several hundred meters of porphyry style grades, good grades. By that, I mean something on the order of, let's say, 1% copper equivalent. We need in our drilling to achieve really long intercepts, not a few meters, but hundreds of meters. If we achieve that kind of thing, then we'll know. And like I said, Tracy, it could occur. I'm hoping it occurs in literally the first drill hole or two, because we are setting the drills up right on the porphyry system. We can see the porphyry in the bare rock. So we know there are values of metal right on surface. So we'll be drilling in the system right from surface. We think the best of this beast kicks in about 150 meters down and then appears to run a great ways to depth. So yes, we do have all the meters budgeted that we need to achieve a discovery, and that could be in the first few holes. And if we do, Tracy, the focus then would be to basically define with an expanded program, because we have a second phase planned, um, expand the footprint, uh, define where this thing is, the body, and then systematically over the next year, 2 years, we would increase the density of the drilling.
So, the Newmont Lake royalty transaction, can you tell us a little bit more about this? You just announced this recently.
Yes, Stephen Barrega, our president, has been shepherding that along. You know Steve well, and that is a significant royalty play. Now, these things are not always easy to negotiate, but the long and short of it is there, and maybe it's a good example of how valuable these properties are. Our properties are up in the Golden Triangle. So, Enduro Metals. Um, has they took on a property of the former Romeos several years ago called Newmont Lake and have been advancing it. They had a 2%, they have a 2% I'm sorry, have a 2% royalty because they now own 100% of it. But they let a couple of years ago, they let the option to buy down that royalty lapse. So the royalty's in place, but often you have the option to simply buy it down from 2% to 1%. They let that lapse. And that became an impediment to their go forward plans. And so they came to us and asked if they could negotiate um, having that option to buy down again. And we worked out a deal, and the deal basically is worth potentially over $22 million just for the option to buy down the royalty from 2% to 1%. Now, that would be staged cash and shares over a number of years in advance royalty payments. But basically, a good example of the value of royalties in the Golden Triangle, and we have several.
Okay, so I was going to ask you to walk us through the economics of this deal, but I think you basically just did. But the timeline for actually securing that potential 22 million could be one
Oh,
year, 6 years, 10 years.
yes, it would be between probably, well, that's a bit undefined because it depends, firstly, whether they find something, and they do have some excellent prospects, several new ones, porphyry prospects again. Let's say between 5 and 10 years, but immediately, i.e., as soon as we get the deal locked down, it's pretty much it's close now. And we would hope to have an announcement sometime in the next several weeks about that. But it would put cash into our jeans as well as shares, quite a few shares immediately. And probably the near term uh, payments or value in terms of cash would be about 1.2 million on that order. The longer term would be substantially greater than that.
So, of course, copper has become one of the most strategic metals globally right
Yeah.
now because of AI, electrification. Everybody's talking about copper, copper, copper. And gold, of course, has had an amazing year. Can I ask you, which of the two are your favorites?
Well, I must say, gold has certainly been a little rocky lately, with its dip down to the around 4,000, but I've always liked gold. I remember when it was worth $700 and we thought that was a great price at the time too. Anyway, it is worth a lot. Copper, I've been stunned by, I mean, for it to be worth over $6 a pound, which is where I believe it is currently, is quite extraordinary. I can remember when it was, a buck 10, a buck 50. So of the two, gosh, I don't know. I haven't really chosen a favor, but they're both pretty good metals to have in your repertoire right now. Eh? So.
Any other surprises we should know about? A hidden streak of hafnium?
Oh, at Trek South there is tellurium, and we've got quite a lot of tungsten. These are both very strategic metals, tungsten especially, and a few other things. But most of the rock value, if we really hit it, will be in the copper and in the gold. There is quite a bit of silver, but it's not going to carry the day for us. Um, yeah, and just on other fronts as well, of course, we've been busy in Nevada, working up the Kincaid property, which is sort of east of Hawthorne in the Walker Lane trend on the west side. And that's looking very promising. We have a potential porphyry or a series of porphyries there because there's a lot of beautiful copper on the surface, a lot of old workings, gold. Um, and our VP exploration, John Bitsock, has just come back from there. They have found an entirely new related zone, but not previously known. These have a big footprint, and we're starting to get excited because of the scale of what John has put his finger on down there. So we're going to work it up to drill ready status probably by the end of the season. And the only other thing I'd mention, you may know this Lundmark Lake property that's up in northwestern Ontario, Tracy. Lundmark Lake, I knew about back in 2004, but it's not far from the Musselwhite mine, which Ross Beaty's, what's the name of the company now? They just bought out the miner Orla. They bought out Orla. Anyway, one of Ross Beaty's companies is now in control of that. Musselwhite was a big gold mine, and we're right along strike from it. And I might say that we have some beautiful clusters of genuine VMS that have been drilled by this company a few years ago, as well as potential bits. So basically, there are a couple of big emerging targets there as well that we're also thinking about actually planning to follow up on. So this near-term focus, though, is definitely Trek South. We're not going to, divert from that. If we hit, we're just going to go full on.
Well, you touched on what your goal is. And of course, you're well known for your successes with GT Gold and your Saddle North discovery. So I'm going to leave our audience with a fun question. What lessons did you learn from that success that you plan on taking forward with the Trek South project?
Well, we learned, for example, how to drill and how to define a project like that. And it's quite instructive. Um, I like these deposits when you find them, porphyry that is, because they have a relatively low finding cost per unit of metal. And at Saddle for GT Gold, we we were able to deliver, depends on the metal prices, but let's say on the order of 13.5 million gold equivalent ounces from a pretty widely spaced gridded drill program. Like most of our holes were 200 meters apart initially. We eventually got it down to maybe 100 meters apart, but that was it. And we walked to depth. So we're replicating that model with our approach at Saddle South because that model, that that drill plan should give us compliant resources if we have a discovery. And that would give us as well indicated level resources as well as inferred. So if you contrast the amount of money that you have to put into defining a porphyry, if you find one, with the amount of money you have to put into defining a high-grade vein deposit, it's like night and day. You might be paying $110 per gold equivalent ounce to find that vein style, whereas with porphyries it can be as low as $1 per unit, or let's say gold equivalent ounce. Um, it's really quite extraordinary. So that's the key takeaway from the experience with Saddle North was the how to drill it, how to define it, how to sell it.
Well, those, of course, are part of the formula that you have explained to our audience already. For those of you looking to learn more about Oreterra, please go to the following website. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.